Welcome, everybody. We're going to get started in just a few minutes. We'll let folks trickle in here, but glad to have you. Give us about maybe one more minute or so. Okay, everybody. In the interest of time, we're going to go ahead and jump in. Welcome to the inaugural BRESE working group session. Today, we're going to be focusing on workforce development and capacity. Really happy to have everybody here. I'm Gretchen Gigley. I'm a senior program manager at Southeast Energy Efficiency Alliance. For those of you that aren't familiar with SEIA, we're a 501c3 nonprofit, and we started in 2006. So it's our 20th year anniversary. But we're one of six regional energy efficiency organizations. We're focused on the Southeast. We work in 12 Southeastern states, promoting energy efficiency as a catalyst for economic growth, workforce development, and energy security. We focus on research, consultation, stakeholder facilitation, things like this BRESE working group, really. So this work is really core to who SEIA is. Before we jump into the content, I wanted to see, my slides aren't progressing there. I wanted to cover a few housekeeping items. For questions, we love questions. Please, please, please bring your questions, as many as you have, and put those in the chat. We're going to have a brief Q&A following each speaker, so you'll have a chance to ask questions right after each presentation. And then if time allows, we'll address as many questions as we can at the end as well. But go ahead and put your questions in the chat anytime through the session. I have a colleague here, Samantha Hauk, who's going to be helping with Q&A. So I'll be passing it off to her when the time comes, and she'll be monitoring the chat too. If you have any technical issues, she can help with those. This session is also being recorded, so we're going to share that out with all the attendees, and it'll also be posted on the BRESE website. We'll share that QR code. We're going to share lots of QR codes, so get your phones ready through this presentation. But those recordings will be on the BRESE website to access and share out with your colleagues. We're going to start our first live poll now. We're going to do a couple live polls through this webinar just to get an idea of who you are, where you work, and so you know who's in the room with you. We'll also have an end of session survey, and I'll talk a little bit more about that at the end, but we would love to hear your feedback. So I'll save my plug for that at the end. We have a great lineup for you today. We have Maggie Kelly Riggins, the Director of Community Solutions at ACEEE, Stephen Ward, the Program Manager at Bit Building with Southeast Energy Institute, Aisha Baldwin, the Sustainability Coordinator at Spelman College, and Bernadette Carrier, the Director of Thrive Business at Thrive NOLA. Before I pass it off, I did want to give a little bit of an overview and history of the BRESE Collaborative. This is an initiative funded by the U.S. Department of Energy, and it started in 2025. I have lots of pop-up screens here. We're focused on supporting 11 southeastern states. You can see the little map on the side there. And we're really looking to advance building performance across the Southeast. We are connecting stakeholders like we're doing today with tools and resources and partnerships to support energy code implementation and best practices, really with the ultimate goal of modernizing building codes, streamlining compliance, expanding energy jobs, and driving lasting energy savings. So some big goals there, but these working groups are really core to some of that work that we've been doing. This is a collaborative effort. We have a great team of folks. I mentioned the U.S. Department of Energy is a key partner, Corsia, and we have the Southeast Sustainability Directors Network and GreenLink Analytics all working together on this initiative. Like I said, core to this work are these working groups. So I wanted to do a quick plug for the series that we have going in May. And this is the first series within the working groups. If you have an interest in any of the other topics, I'd encourage you to go ahead and register. There's your first QR code. So that'll take you to the BRESE website and you can register. Another key piece of the BRESE collaborative work is funding for, to help you implement some of this work and move the needle. So we do have an RFI out right now called the Energy Affordability. My screen is covered up. Sorry, Energy Affordability Initiative Prize, and you can look on the slide. We're hoping for concepts that address these 4 items and really are looking at innovative ways to address energy affordability, building energy codes, implementation, workforce and education needs. And hopefully this would include something like, expanding apprenticeship and education programs, or building out a new apprenticeship or education program. But it's pretty broad in the approach that we're accepting for this application. Main thing here is submissions are due on May 27th by 11:59. So go ahead and check it out. And if you have any questions, there's a place for you, or there's an email address on there, and you can send your questions our way and we'll get you the answers. So there's your next QR code. Okay. Now we can share the poll results so you know who's in the room and what geographic scope we're working with. I'm going to pass it over to Sammy to do that.
Hi, everyone. Thanks for joining today. So it looks like we have quite a few folks from Alabama, Florida, Georgia, Louisiana, North Carolina, South Carolina, and Virginia, folks who work in these spaces here today. So thank you for joining us, and thanks for participating in the poll. Pass it back to you, Gretchen.
All right, great. I am going to stop sharing and introduce our first speaker. First up, we have Maggie Kelly Riggins, Director of Community Solutions at ACEEE. Maggie directs the community-focused work for ACEEE, especially related to industry and building codes, ensuring that disadvantaged communities benefit from energy efficiency investments and projects. She also supports ACEEE's efforts to drive policy and program innovation among local and state governments, utilities, and private sector stakeholders. She joined ACEEE in 2025. Prior to that, she worked at Southeast Energy Efficiency Alliance, leading the billings team across the Southeast and the United States islands in the Caribbean and Pacific Oceans. She also has previous work experience in local governments across the Southeast region. Maggie holds a Bachelor's of Science in Public Policy from Georgia Tech, with a focus on energy, environmental, and social policy and sustainable communities. Welcome, Maggie. Thank you for sharing your time and expertise, and I'll pass it over to you.
Thank you. And I'll say it does feel a little bit like coming home. when I get to be on a call with my SIA friends and colleagues. It is good to be with everyone today. I'm going to share a little bit actually about a report that our team at ACEEE put out just about a year ago on building a workforce for energy efficient homes. If you are unfamiliar with ACEEE or you're getting to know us, we are a research nonprofit organization that really thinks about as we're thinking about the ecosystem for energy efficiency, be it in buildings, residential and commercial, but also the industrial manufacturing space and transportation, federal, state, and local policy, and what that means for investments and innovation and programs and the behaviors that people and actors might have to take. And we published that research, and I'm going to share a little bit of the research related to workforce today. As Gretchen said, I am the Director of Community Solutions at ACEEE. I joined the team last January in 2025. And under my bucket, really thinking largely about what does it mean for community to show up in our work, both in how community informs the research that ACEEE conducts and publishes, but also how our research can be useful for community. Workforce is one of those portfolios that's under our community solutions practice. And within the space, what I'll say is that I had no hand in writing this report. I think I was one of the interviewees, like they talked to me when I was in my position at SIA, and I directed them to a couple of great programs in the region. But all of the folks who wrote the report are currently unavailable to do this today. So I'm going to try to do it justice. But Rohini Srivastava, Roxy Alaya, and Alex Aquino were the incredible authors of this report. And I'm going to just share a little bit about it. So who are we talking about when we are talking about the residential building workforce? When we were thinking about the folks that we're going to really need to activate and to support in this larger ecosystem, we really kind of get into these 5 main key sectors, if you will. What are those jobs? Especially in the code space, we know a lot about building officials. We need building officials. As a large part of the work that we do. Obviously, the trades in particular, folks who are in the technician space, electricians, plumbers, framers of structures, et cetera, are folks who do the modeling and systems analysts. We don't always think about those folks as a part of our workforce, but it's really important, especially as a lot of our tech starts to move more and more software-based. And how we model are getting to be more and more complicated energy codes, that these folks are thought about as a part of our workforce. Obviously, our energy efficiency contractors, kind of thinking about the engineers, our HVAC contractors, our weatherization technicians, and then of course our educators are a key portion of our a sector that's needed to be in this conversation around workforce. And really, we're going to lean into all of those. In this research, where we really were looking at what does it take to build a workforce for energy efficient homes in particular, we started to really take these key sectors and think about key skills. So when we were hearing from the folks that we were talking to and the research, what we kind of really narrowed down into were that these were the key skills that folks thought were important for us to focus on. And that's everything from system design and performance modeling, which really, more so leans into the kind of thought process of, do you understand how energy performance works in a home? Can you model and design high performance systems? Are you able to track codes and comply with codes? Are the drawings doing that work? From systems integration, kind of thinking about how you size and install a heat pump or a ventilation system to the right size of a home. Things are happening according to a local code and being implementing that code or manufacturer specifications correctly. And of course, things like how we apply new demand response technologies or new technologies generally. For system evaluations and systems testing, thinking a lot about those air leakage and blower door tests and assessments, really critical to understanding what is actually happening in the building. And things like energy use analysis and math. Math is so critical, construction math, but building science math as a part of the system. Data acquisition and analysis. So how are we collecting data both from the field, but utilizing those computing skills to calculate energy savings or making sure that databases are managed as we're keeping track of all the plans that might come into a local government. And then lastly, operations and maintenance, the really critical piece around commissioning and testing, maintaining and servicing equipment and buildings, and troubleshooting when equipment fails, because we know that happens more often than we would like it to, but having those skills is really important. But there's lots of roadblocks to these pieces. And I'm actually going to walk through each of these and kind of offer a little bit of what we heard and kind of some ideas of solutions that might that we found would be helpful in this research. But this is kind of where we really found the challenges to be. So let's go through each of them. From low awareness and negative perceptions about careers is one of the major roadblocks. And I should say each of these 5 roadblocks we really saw kind of being at all equal footing. We tried to see, like, is there one that folks think is higher priority than another? And really it kind of came out where all of these are really at the same level and have equal importance. So that low awareness and negative perception about careers, we know that there's not a whole lot of information around these careers in formal school education. And even when you're in this space, that defined network of what it looks like to build an effective career path is lacking. There's a lack of educational resources and outreach to non-English speakers and non-native English practitioners. There's also, within these pieces, a negative perception and bias of joining the building trades. It's viewed as being less prestigious of a profession than maybe the 4-year schooling and college track that has been really pushed on multiple generations now for a few decades. And then lastly, there seems to be, and what we found, a contractor bias at times that goes against doing energy efficiency projects. And that is a variety of things, from unwillingness to learn about these new technologies, having limited funds to actually send people to upskill them, or just lack of exposure and experience with those technologies. I remember having someone tell me, oh, well, I don't want to mess with a heat pump water heater because I don't know, or a HVAC heat pump because we don't need more heat in our homes in Miami. Right. So like the lack of understanding and perception of the technology itself has this negativity. And as a way to combat that, right, like thinking about as this group and this working group and pieces meet, how do you create pathways to conducting outreach and providing information about the jobs and careers that exist in this space, that from a couple of slides ago, right? Thinking about what it looks like to do that, of course, with this list here, but also in additional languages, and really leaning on groups, organizations, and folks with expertise to be able to do that. And then braiding multiple funding sources to broaden outreach and expand program offerings. There's also the barrier of having a shortage of programs that integrate technical skills, soft skills, employer needs, and market demands. And what we found is that often there's a failure to integrate that up-to-date technical content with soft skills training. We hear all the time, soft skills, soft skills, soft skills. No one knows how to talk to anyone anymore, right? And when you're entering someone's home or you're building someone's home, that's really critical. There's also this absence of family supporting wages to cover the cost of training for either new occupants or lost business for the time that's spent away from projects in the field. This often can feel like it's low priority to make these programs inclusive and representative of the populations that they serve. And we see a lack of support for training the trainers, right, and employers to improve the learning experience, right? There's not really a process for trainers to learn how to teach more of those soft skills or incentives to do so. And so really kind of in that space of thinking about how partnerships might come together to collaborate, and understanding what that balanced approach might look like, developing curriculum that's based on market needs, and coaching for participants, especially in underrepresented populations, to prepare them for specific occupations, interviews, spaces that really allow for not just meeting the market demands and the technical skills, but those soft skills that so often are critical as a part of this work. Insufficient skills due to lack of access of open source standard curriculum and training. This is one of those things that I know many folks who are on this call today are working on and working deeply on, is that there is kind of a lack of national skill standards. You might have different things in different states when it comes to energy related jobs. Our traditional academic training programs focus a lot more on basic academic knowledge than really the field skill side of like, how do you size and install new technologies or things of that nature. And then the length of our trainings are long, and certifications, you might have to fly to another state, right? And can be disruptive to business. And so really tackling that by having that standardized curricula, providing credentials they're really focused on being employer recognized, and offering lots of ways to have that training. Inadequate support to access some new jobs, professional development, and career advancements kind of touches on some of those other points earlier, but there really is a lack of support services and wraparound services. There's limited job preparedness and a lack of access to that career planning and post-training advancement. There's a lot of training and praying and not a lot of training and placing, right? And so really thinking about partnering with local and community-based organizations to really come in and provide those services that you as a technical trainer, the technical pieces might not have or be in the space to offer, recruiting employers into workforce programs that have that commitment to hire graduates, and obviously compensating folks for their time. And then lastly, and I'm running short on time here, so lastly, the burdensome contractor licensing requirements and business practices came out loud and clear. Skilled trades are obviously usually licensed by states. Each state has a different license. As we know in the South, almost every state shares a border and people work in lots of states all at once, right? And so there's this piece around how do you offer and think about that policy side of licensing, kind of that standardizing piece. Having the internal resources, personnel, and capacity, and incentivizing, and offering financial support for folks that might have to take time away from income earning projects in order to think deeply about energy efficiency and energy practices. And there's a role for everyone. In the report, we actually go into the details of which each of these stakeholders, which you can see in the first column, might actually be able to engage with. And this slide just kind of shows you where we see those folks showing up within each of these barriers. But we do encourage you to kind of think about who are your partners? Where do you show up on the stakeholder list, and how might you engage both within the BRESE collaborative, but outside of that in your day-to-day work around these barriers for workforce. And I'll end with saying, read our report. I think Sam might drop that report in the chat here in a second. But the intent really is that a high skilled and growing workforce is really needed to carry out the delivery of any of the energy efficiency programs and projects and policies that state and local governments might be implementing. And this can only really be achieved with a workforce that's ready to translate those into action. So thank you.
Awesome. Thank you, Maggie. I appreciate you sharing that wealth of knowledge with us all. I don't see any questions in the chat right now. I think some folks are probably simmering. I know I tend to be a crock pot with that. Um, Gretchen, I think we have time. I had one question that came up while Maggie was talking. And if any
Yes.
questions come through, please send them, folks, and I'll save them and we'll make sure that we connect with Maggie to get those answered for you. Um, but Maggie, I was wondering when you showed the challenges in residential and in building that you were talking about, what do you think one of the that people who are working outside the industry often underestimate as a challenge?
I think people often underestimate the fact that, if you look around most major areas, you see cranes in the sky, you see folks working, right? Like there is a perception that there are people doing these jobs, and there are. And we are also at an insufficient level of people for the number of projects that might be in the pipeline, or the skill level of that might be in that space. And we have a lot of people who are looking for really good work that's with their hands, that is, supporting family sustaining wages, that allows for them to give back into their communities. And so, I think that misconception of, oh, well, obviously all this building is happening. I live in downtown Atlanta and I can look out of the window and see and hear a variety of construction as we get ready for the World Cup in 30 days. But right, there's this perception that we have a lot of folks already in the space, and therefore we've got it figured out. When really this space rapidly advances quite often, and has in the last 2 to 3 years, let alone the last decade. And it's going to be really important that we upskill all those folks who are out on job sites right now, but also recruit and train and get new folks into our space, because there are a lot of projects that are waiting to happen.
Thank you. I appreciate that, Maggie. Okay, I'll pass it back to you, Grace.
Thanks. Thank you so much, Maggie. I love the slide that shows all of the sectors that really need to be involved to move this needle, because I think collaboration is the key, and it's partly why we're doing these working groups. So that was a great kind of roadmap for folks to see who am I not engaging right now, and I really appreciate this paper overall. Is there a next step for the paper? Do you see you guys doing another, I'm kind of putting you on the spot a little bit, but
no,
another
it's
research
both
project?
on the spot, but also
Yeah.
maybe an open invitation. We
Yeah.
are currently conducting research in what are effective partnership models.
Perfect.
So you had a great segue, and Gretchen, you didn't know about that. So we are kind of taking that first image I showed and a lot of the other things that we know, and really looking at what partnership models are actually working for these training programs, and then how can we let folks know and be aware of, oh, well, we want to expand our program, or we want to start a program. How can we, what parts are we missing, or who are we not investing in or investigating in our local areas? And actually, I'm really excited to hear more a little bit later about one of the partnerships that's going to get shared on this call, because there are also innovative partnerships that people aren't necessarily thinking about with universities or utilities or others that we think are going to be important to highlight. So if you've got fun, great programs for us to think about and include in that research, we'd love to hear it.
That's perfect. That's great to hear. And so everybody bookmark ACEEE's website and be on the lookout for that next level of research. I think that's really exciting. Okay, thank you so much, Maggie. Really appreciate it. We're going to move on to our next speakers, and I'm going to introduce Stephen and Aisha together. They're both going to be presenting on the Building Improvement Toolkit, also known as BIP Building. So first we have Stephen Ward, who's the program manager of BIP Building at South Base Energy Institute. Stephen leads leads building, helping translate everyday building operations into measurable sustainability, performance, and resilience outcomes. He also helps manage Southface's campus, a living lab for sustainable building practices. It's right here in downtown Atlanta, and regularly shares his expertise through national conferences, industry partnerships, and podcasts. Stephen previously served on the LEED version 5 consensus committee, and his background in music performance from the Juilliard School continues to inform his systems thinking, human-centered approach to sustainability. And then next we have Aisha Baldwin, Sustainability Coordinator from Spelman College. Aisha serves as Spelman's inaugural Sustainability Coordinator and manages Sustainable Spelman, the college's campus-wide sustainability initiative. She also serves as Principal Investigator for the Building Improvement Toolkit Program, building, advancing building performance, reducing environmental impacts, and creating hands-on learning opportunities in clean tech and clean energy. A Spelman graduate in environmental studies, Baldwin also brings more than a decade of experience in sustainability strategy, environmental innovation, and workforce development, including roles at Georgia Tech's Manufacturing Institute, Freudenberg, NOK, Sealing Technologies, and UC Davis. Her work reflects a commitment to advancing sustainability leadership while preparing students for future careers in the field. Thank you so much, Aisha and Stephen, for being here today. I'll pass it off to y'all.
Thank you, Gretchen, for that. Let me see if I can share the proper screen. I always have challenges with this. I need my 14-year-old niece right here next to me telling me, Uncle Stephen, click that. Don't click that. Don't share that. Okay. All right. Can you all see my screen? Yes. Okay. Let's hope it holds. So thank you, Gretchen, just for this invite to share a little bit about one of my favorite programs that is part of the Building Improvement Toolkit, or building department here at Southface, and that's our BIT for resilient HBCUs. Our roadmap for today is just share a little bit about briefly about Southface, so you kind of know where we are and what we do, and then talk a little bit about the missing link that we find in building performance, kind of how we are turning campuses into living labs, and then building momentum across the US and beyond, just with this type of program. And then Aisha, even though it is reunion week at Spelman, has carved out time in her very busy schedule to share a little bit of her insights in this program. So I'm so happy that not only that she's a key partner with us in this, but has made time to speak about her experience today. So a little bit about Southface, as Gretchen mentioned, we're based here in Atlanta, Georgia. We've been around for almost 50 years. And even though that is our official mission, I'd like to say our unofficial mission is that we really try and make sustainability as accessible as possible, and kind of help folks understand and kind of remove the veneer that sustainability is for a certain type of person, or for a certain class of building, or costs a lot of money, or is for a smelly hippie, or is for folks in Silicon Valley, and really remind folks that we all have a part to play in a more sustainable world. Anytime we open a door, anytime we leave a window open, anytime we don't turn off a light, all of that plays a role in how we are engaging and being better stewards in our environment. And Southface really tries to help folks connect the dots between how their everyday behaviors can really have a huge impact in the sustainability world. Our services across the entire life cycle of the building kind of span every part of it. So we help folks design and plan and find financing for sustainable projects, help folks to construct in a sustainable way, as well as provide inspections to ensure that they are actually doing what they are supposed to be doing. Where my team falls is under the occupy, operate, and maintain piece. So that's kind of the longest part of a building's life cycle, yet tends to be the most unsexiest. So trying to get folks to understand how much their everyday behaviors plays in the part of a more sustainable building. And then we have our workforce and certification and training piece of our company. But most importantly, what I really like about South Face is that we really walk the sustainability walk. So our campus serves as a living lab where we showcase sustainable operations in real life. So kind of post-COVID, we were able to provide folks with free tours to come into the building and see this in real life. So we have a PV array, we have a green roof, we even compost our own human waste. So go in this toilet here on the third floor, and it goes into this composting tank, and there are earthworms, beetles, bugs, and they eat it up and they poop it out, and it turns into usable compost that you can use in your own garden, or in your own non-vegetable garden. So anyway, we have other stuff. So come on and check us out if you're in the Atlanta area, because we really try and, again, make sustainability accessible by providing this kind of touch-feely part of our campus. So to get to the actual presentation, missing link we found in building performance, right? In the Southeast, we have a lot of Southern realities, right? A unique building and operational challenges, like long cooling seasons, high humidity, severe storms, aging building infrastructure. Many communities, especially here, lack enough trained folks to support kind of the long-term building performance, especially once the building is built. Folks tend to think, if I have this great building that was built in a sustainable way, it will magically operate itself. It does not. Technology alone does not solve the problem. And to that note, buildings perform better when the people inside them actually know how the building should operate. Because, right, buildings don't save energy, people do. So that's the space we try and play in, is how can we get folks to understand how their everyday behaviors really help to ensure that we are being good stewards of our environment, but turning people into the conduits to enact change. So the Bit for Resilient HBCUs program was really born out of UNCF's HBCU Climate Action Blueprint, which really outlines kind of this community-driven piece that already takes HBCUs as trusted centers of their community, and how can they become climate action hubs. And so the Bit for Resilient program trains students to be drivers of that change, really using this framework of the HBCU Climate Action Blueprint. It's online, so I highly suggest to check it out. It's really beautifully written and great for framework for turning really any institution into a climate action hub, especially as a center of the community. So that's what it is. So it activates that climate action hub. So that's where we created the Bit for Resilient HBCUs program. And so what it is it's a 3-year partnership between us and our prime funder, Sustain Our Future Foundation. And then we have additional support from the Environmental Defense Fund and RAGO. And the idea is to support HBCUs and becoming these climate action hubs. And we do that through that student career development and training students on how to become champions of change. So more on that. The goals of the program, kind of 5, 5, and 5. So we're establishing 5 HBCUs. We're training and credentialing 25 student fellows, and then those 25 student fellows will then go out into the community and support 25 community-based organizations. And so this first goal was to establish these climate action hubs. So we have Clark at Atlanta as one of the 5. Xavier, don't say Xavier, you will get canceled. You have to say Xavier. Ask me how I know that. Morgan State, Spelman, of course, Aisha's here, and then Texas Southern University. And so we have a dedicated platform where the students use in order to record their changes and to, not record their changes, record their efficiencies, learning, and tools for them to be champions of change. Next piece is we're training 25 student fellows. And so on your screen, unfortunately, you only see 24 here. One of them unfortunately had to drop out, but these are them. These are actually our student fellows from all 5 institutions. And so we met with them twice a week in virtual sessions. And then at the end of this semester, they're all supposed to earn their Green Professionals Operations and Maintenance Essentials certificate to become BIT practitioners. And so it's those micro credentials that were very important to them to showcase, like, I know what I'm talking about. So happy that to have them be in our first cohort. And then each student on each campus, there are five students per campus, each has their own roles. We have our energy champion, water champion, waste champion, indoor air IAQ champion, and then a storyteller, which we find is one of the most important components, because as building science folks, as engineers, all of that, we kind of get in our heads and start to speak jargon that we think people are understanding, and trust me, they're not. So having this storyteller having this storyteller as a student fellow role really helps us broaden its impact, because they can help us connect those dots to what is going to resonate with their student network. From there's this hands-on learning piece. So each champion has their own toolkit. So the energy champion has like the watt meter and smoke pencil and thermal imaging camera. Water champion has tools, waste, all of that. But the idea is they're not just reading stuff off a page. They are then practicing this in real life with real life tools for them to assess their buildings and learning labs to understand how it operates. And then, of course, understand how to make solutions to make it operate better. So it's a really key component in keeping them engaged, so that they have a better understanding of how buildings work using real life tools. And part of this program is also to help them reframe sustainability, so they understand kind of what their impact is downstream, right? We had a poll early on. We were like, how many of you leave the lights on in your dorms? And one was really honest. She was like, I don't pay the bill, so I don't care. I leave it on. But when we started to connect the dots, it's like there is a human element behind you making the choice to leave your light on. So instead of just, I turned off a light, it's like when I choose to turn off a light, I'm not just saving energy, but I'm helping those and I'm helping to lower the pollution that often affects communities living near power plants, which happen to be or tend to be communities of color. So having them be able to connect the dots has been very powerful in them understanding how much power they have in just their everyday actions, and then be able to communicate that with their own networks. And so this first semester, what have they learned? Quickly, identified operational issues. Indoor environmental quality was one of the top ones, then waste. And sustainability efforts exist on their campuses, but it's hard for that to bubble up to the broader student network. And then they're motivated by kind of this hands-on component. So that was the first semester, and then we continue into the second semester in the fall. And in addition to just identifying issues, we wanted them to say, okay, now what are some creative, peer accessible solutions that you can share? So this is Kelsey from Spelman, and we asked each champion to provide some sort of video of them correcting the issue in the space. At Spelman, indoor air quality was one of those issues, especially stuffiness in labs. And so here's Kelsey's very short video, which I think is
This is Kelsey Harp, Spelman College's indoor air quality champion. This is an air filter. Feeling stuffy in the lab? Then turn it on.
Right, so simple, fun, playful. So again, just being able for them to be our storyteller champions, like what is going to resonate with your students, right? And so that's been a fun exercise. And then as of last month, all of them have earned their G Pro O&M certificate. So we're really happy for them so that they can move into the following semester. And then next semester is when they take what they have learned in the learning labs and then go out into the community and start to practice what they have learned. And that is what starts to tie in the HBCU as the climate action hub, right? Because, if I have an issue, I know that Spelman, Clark Atlanta, Howard, et cetera, has this program where students can come up and help me understand what my issues might be. So I know I'm out of time. So scalability, right? We hope to train the trainer model and technical training help to position HBCUs as that center of the community, and then some long-term revenue opportunity, right? And so, once students are trained in doing these basic assessments, what are some potential ways for this to start to fund itself by the community starting to work with the campus? But with that, I'm so excited again to turn over to my colleague at Spelman, Aisha, just to share a little bit about her experience on with the Bit for Resilient HBCUs at Spelman.
Thank you so much, Stephen, and thank you for the invitation to Gretchen and Stephen and Samantha. I really, really appreciate being here and being able to talk about the BIT program and its impact on our campus. And for those who are probably trying to do calculations in their heads about how I have probably over 10 decades of experience, I started really, really young. It's funny because this is, again, a continuation of workforce development that started when I was a freshman in college. And I was talking to Stephen earlier and how my first internship was at the Grand Canyon National Park. So learning about workforce and how it ties into other fields is what I am now doing at Spelman. So with that being said, I'd like to start with a poll for the audience. So if you can raise your hand, if you went through an official workforce program, you can use the raise your hand button below, just so that I can get an idea of who's gone through sort of a training program, an official training program before related to building science. So the other question I have is, how many people wish they went through one? You can also put in the chat if you are unable to raise your hand. Okay.
I see a few raised hands coming up here. 4 total, including me and Stefan. So
yeah, so this is exactly the problem that Southface in collaboration with that we're solving in a collaboration with Southface and Sustain Our Future and our other partners, because we couldn't do this alone, because it takes a lot of people with certain skills already to then share those skills with other people, our students, faculty, and staff who are also learning about the built environment. One of the goals that we have at Spelman is to increase our infrastructure literacy for across our campus, because people tend to not think about infrastructure. They think about infrastructure is like air. We just take it for granted. And so this is part of the reason why we are really digging more into storytelling and helping our campus understand that, like Stephen said, and my supervisor, Art Frazier, who's our director of facilities and an architect, he also shares that it is how the building is one part, but how we live and work inside of the buildings are also really critical. And so infrastructure literacy is one of our key focuses for our campus. And we are working closely with organizations who understand infrastructure and how we can then live and operate within infrastructure so that we are sustaining our buildings, maintaining our buildings, and even building more buildings that have cool technologies in them. The other part that I wanted to mention for our campus and our students is that the big question that people have is, how do you get students interested in careers in the built environment? Because I think the assumption is younger people don't want to work in the built environment. They want cool tech jobs. They want those types of opportunities. But I think that that is an assumption that isn't necessarily true. Like Maggie was talking about earlier, she was saying how things are changing, so we need analysts. There's different jobs in the market that are available now that weren't available 20 years ago. And how do we prepare our students to have those opportunities, be ready for those opportunities post graduation? So that's something that the Built Building program is also doing. We have our students learning about data analytics. They're learning those soft skills that Maggie was referring to earlier, because they're learning about how to connect with community people, because academic language versus community language are two different languages. So how you communicate within academic settings, higher education, that's not the same as how you will communicate with Miss Pam who lives down the street. So how do you and that's part of what Southface is doing, is helping our students, and it helps that Spelman is also liberal arts education. So we do appreciate those soft skills, and Southface is also helping a lot with that and helping our students feel confident to then go down the street and talk to Miss Pam and have her feel comfortable to then learn more about these technologies that can reduce her energy bill and save energy savings across her building. And then it's a domino effect. So then she tells her neighbors. So these are the hopes of the program. And so far, I would say it's running quite smoothly. And I'm really grateful for the partnership that we have with Selfpace. And if you are in the Atlanta area, I would also invite you all to come to an event that Southface and Spelman are hosting together on Saturday, because we'll be talking more about clean technology and innovation and how this leads to a stronger workforce for Georgia and the global economy as well.
Thank you. I really appreciate all that insight, y'all. I wish there were programs like that where I was growing up. They just sound really wonderful. And I'm wondering, Aisha, what you just talked to, is there like a flyer or something we can share with folks for that? Because it sounded like we do have some folks in the room who
Yes,
might.
I will put it in the chat, and I'm putting it in the chat right now. And feel free, if you have any questions about it, I'll also put my LinkedIn here, and you can reach out and ask me questions that you may have.
Thank you. Appreciate that. Um, and you were kind of talking this. I think we have a lot of folks simmering with everything today, but you were talking about a little bit about the differences in working in university versus outside of university. And I'm wondering if you both have like one sentence extra insight you could give to what some of those roadblocks are for collaborating with universities when it comes to the energy apprenticeship internship program specifically that you've seen in the communities you've worked with, to give insight to folks who are thinking of kicking these off.
Yes, thank you, Samantha. That's a really good question. I would say that part of the roadblocks that we tend to have with community-based organizations is one, if they're not in the energy space or the building science space, then it's sometimes hard for them to see how they fit into the space. So that's part of the roadblock, which is also part of the reason why the building program has a storyteller fellow, because we are really, like, we believe storytelling is infrastructure, and it allows us to materialize some of the concepts that we have in our brains that we want to then get into the world. So making sure that we're crafting these stories to the community in a way that they can then say yes to an opportunity that's presented.
Yeah, I would say just being in academia can be in a bubble, and so it can be hard to come out of that bubble. But I like to try to approach every situation like Nobody hates the environment. I don't know anyone I've met say, you know what, I hate this environment. Like even to the most right-wing hunter, right? They still want clean water, fresh air, affordable energy. And so if you can get out of like our heads and start to say, okay, how can I approach this to have some common ground? Like I like clean water. Don't you? Who's going to say no to that, right? And so try to take that approach because academia is easier to get into the books. We'll say the book says it's this way, therefore the world operates like this. And it's like, no, not really. And people, still have that same approach. It's just that it might be a different path that they're going to take. So just try to have an open mind and say nobody hates the environment. They just might speak a different language. So perhaps don't speak dirty hippie to them. Perhaps speak, I don't know, rifle association to them or whatever it is. But some way to help, across that perceived gap that really is not a huge gap at all. It's more semantics. And so that's why the storyteller role is so important. Is how can we, help us broaden our impact through our language.
Exactly. And I know we're short on time, but I really wanted to share another nugget and of gratitude for Southface because it's been an incredible experience. We have fellows across different disciplines, and typically when people think of buildings, they immediately gravitate towards like engineers, or when they think of energy savings, they immediately think like environmental science, or someone in that field. But we've been able to connect with students across so many disciplines that have a role in the role of in the facilitation of getting this industry where it wants to be. So we're very grateful for that. And also, like, I know that a big part of this space is maintaining the buildings, which is really good because it allows us to sort of use innovation of this program because it's higher education, and essentially higher education is research. So this program allows us to really build our play with building improvements in a way that connects to research. So that's also a plus from a higher education point of view.
I had one quick question. I know we're squeezed here a little bit, but I wanted to hear about, I guess, from your perspective, Aisha, this I believe this is a 3-year partnership. Is that what y'all said? So what happens after that 3 years? What does sustainability look like at Spelman, Aisha, and then Stephen, what's next for BIT? Are you looking for other partners? You may be amongst friends here or in a crowd that, might be able to help with that. But what's sustainability look like in terms programmatically for both of you in your organizations?
Steven, you can go first.
Sure. Yeah. Thank you. So yes, thank you for bringing that up, Gretchen. This is cohort 1. We're trying to line up cohort 2, 3, 4, 5, 50, 67, all that. And so yes, this first cohort ends in the end of this year. And so we are looking for funding for the next 5, but also to be able to maintain this at the current institutions that they're already at, so that it does not end there, and so we can continue to have champions on each campus. Because ideally, the goal is, how can we again make this sexy? I know I'm gonna get canceled for using that term, but when people like, I don't know, influencers start to say, hey, I turned off the light, aren't I cool? And people are like, oh, I'm going to turn off the light too. Like that's really the goal here. So any way to partner and expand this reach beyond HBCUs. It's really kind of bit for higher learning. It's just HBCUs has been the first cohort. So anyone who wants to join, we're happy to have you, because it's all about everyday human behaviors and how we can help folks really make an impact through everyday behavior. So thank you, Aisha, for letting me.
Yeah. And so for us at Spelman, we really believe in this program, and we which is part of the reason why we found a home for it on our campus, even after like the funding not disappears, but after the funding period, so we can continue this and continue raising money for it and continue inviting more students to participate past the end of the year. So this is something that we believe in, and we see South Face are the experts in this space. And we always rely on the experts to help us with training our students and our staff to and our faculty to learn more about the areas of expertise. And it's higher ed, so we move a lot slower than the experts because we're not, we're about research and education, which is great, but it's different from the industry that focuses solely on a specific thing. So we hope that we can continue this partnership with South Face because we really do rely on them to help us moving forward and keeping up with all of the changes that happen rapidly within the building space.
Great. Thank you both for sharing your time and expertise today, and the great work that you're doing together in this really special collaboration. So we have websites to share, many in the chat, so y'all visit those websites and bookmark them and follow the progress of this collaboration. Okay, we are going to hop to our next speaker. We have Bernadette Carrier, Director of Thrive Business at Thrive NOLA. Bernadette is a New Orleans native and holds a master's in landscape architecture from Louisiana State University and a master of public administration from Howard University. Her work spans urban design, environmental policy, and sustainable community planning with a focus on preserving historic and cultural resources and advancing equitable development. At Thrive NOLA, she strengthens small business capacity by supporting their development as prime contractors and subcontractors for local, state, and federal procurement opportunities. She also advances policy initiatives focused on creating more accessible government procurement processes for small and minority-owned businesses. Prior to Thrive, Bernadette led disaster resilience and recovery policy efforts across Louisiana at the Center for Sustainable Engagement and Development and served as director at the South Washington Collaborative, where she oversaw community-based programs focused on housing, education, and family stability. Welcome, Bernadette. Thank you so much for joining us, and I'm going to share your presentation. So give me 1 second. All right. Can everybody see that? Give. All right. Take it away, Bernadette. Thank you for being here.
Hi, thank you, Gretchen. Thank you, everyone, for having me. It's good to be amongst great company. As Gretchen mentioned, I am Bernadette Carrier. I am a native of New Orleans, and I think it's important to say that just because New Orleans is changing drastically post Hurricane Katrina. And, I think the driver that brought so many people here was the people, and we're losing that culture at an exponential rate. And it's because it's not affordable anymore for several reasons, to include housing costs, rising housing costs due to energy, insurance, and all that stuff. So, I am here because of the love that I have for New Orleans, and there isn't a greater place for me to be. So I just wanted to say that. Next slide, please, Gretchen. So Thrive. We are building climate resiliency through green infrastructure, stormwater management, and clean energy transition. I started at Thrive a little over 4 years ago, and I came on to work specifically with the businesses, to help businesses get the support they needed, whether it's back office operations, whether there were certifications to strengthen, to do the maintenance on these interventions that were created, but also to connect the small businesses to the workforce. Um, a lot of times we had these businesses who were capable of doing the work, but they didn't have the support that they needed in workforce, and they didn't have the time to train them themselves. So, we at Thrive, we thought that would be a good place to we would be a good place to connect the businesses with the workforce. And we started off in green infrastructure, stormwater management. And on this picture, you can see like this the picture on the far left, we started digging, and the space was still flooding. But after we installed the intervention, there was no more flooding on this person's property. But that is where we started. We started in green infrastructure, stormwater management, just because we are below sea level and we needed to mitigate the flooding. Whether that was residential or commercial. We needed a workforce to do the work, but we needed to, post Hurricane Katrina, we needed to do the work ourselves. The intent was to train as many people, even if they were just regular residents. Hey, are you interested in doing this work? Come on in. We're gonna, provide a stipend, but we're gonna train you to do this work. And coincidentally, people were adverse to trees because of the damage that the trees caused post Katrina, right? But we do know that trees kind of help mitigate those costs of energy too. They provide shading and help cool, the heat island effect that we experience here in New Orleans, especially with the lack of trees. And so, just educating folks on that. So, even though we started in green infrastructure, we're transitioning into clean energy, they overlap and they intersect. And so I just want to point that out. Next slide, Gretchen, please. So, New Orleans. So, Thrive, we are committed to economic opportunity, climate resiliency, environmental justice, workforce development, and community stability. And all of these are important because again, I can't stress, we have so much, so many opportunities. We are a test pilot for um, many government fundings. And the problem is usually when it comes down to execute the work, we're told, oh, we don't have qualified individuals to do the work, or people aren't interested. And that's not true. There are several nonprofits, there are several agencies that are doing the work, whether it's, whatever sector there is, we are doing the work. And it is based around climate resiliency. But what we're finding is that even though there is preparation in these, workforce areas, it doesn't always meet opportunity. And that is one of I think the barriers that we're facing. We're getting funding to train these individuals, or, we're being told, oh, there's federal funding for this, and then it's getting pulled back. People don't believe that climate change is an issue or that it's a big factor. And so it is causing a problem. And how it's affecting community, I believe, is that um they're discouraged, right? So they're being trained in these spaces, but it's like, well, where's the work, or why isn't it going to us? And so how Thrive has, stepped in, we are moving into social enterprise, and I'll get more into that later. But the core areas of impact where we're operating is in weatherization, stormwater management training, the green infrastructure implementation, the solar and renewable energy transition, small business development, and community engagement. With the weatherization, we have a team that goes out, to talk to people like Miss Pam in the neighborhood, letting her know the benefits of weatherization and to get her energy costs down. Stormwater management trainings. We're giving individuals off the street, whether they come from prison, whether they're just looking for a new opportunity. We're saying, hey, if you're interested, if you're willing to work in the heat, we'll give you, we'll pay you, we'll train you to do these interventions, and we'll give you these certifications, all of which are free of charge to you. The solar and renewable energy. To date, we have trained over 45 individuals in that space, and they're excited to do the work. And we are, even in the storm green infrastructure space, I think we are on cohort 14, and we have trained over 200 individuals where we have retained many of those individuals, but a lot we have placed on jobs and they're doing well. And it's transferable jobs. It's not New Orleans specific. They can go anywhere and work. Next slide, please. So again, the workforce development includes the training and weatherization, solar installation, construction readiness, heavy equipment operation. And we find heavy equipment is a major component, just because it is a 16-week course, but it's free to the individuals who come through our program. They get heavy equipment certification. They learn how to work bobcat, skid steers, just various heavy equipment, and they get to move on, and they don't start at minimum wage. They're starting jobs at $20 an hour. And they're excited to go to work. Uh, I heard one of the panelists, Aisha, mention that the misconception is that people don't want to do these jobs that don't seem prestigious. But, here in New Orleans, people like getting their hands dirty. They like getting in the dirt, and they are doing the work, and they're excited about it. Our workforce specifically, when they're out doing the work, they come back from the field and they're like, oh, I have a picture. Look at this. Look what we did. We have a garden, or we, weatherized this house. And the owners were so happy. They said they were going to do a barbecue for us. So the clients are happy to have the work done, but the workforce is even eager to do the work just because of the connections, the people that they're meeting, and they can see the fruits of their labor. Next slide, please. Um, so again, how we transitioned into solar energy, obviously we are below sea level and we were flooding, but also the biggest complaint that we were hearing was that, the energy costs were so expensive. Like we have energy, and we have Energy New Orleans here. I know a lot of other cities, they have other power organizations, Atmos, Pepco, whatever. We only have energy, so there isn't any competitors. So we have to use energy. So we were trying to figure out how to help lower the energy costs. Energy had these programs, and so we actually partnered with them to get the word out. So free of charge to residents. Hey, look, if you want to lower your costs, your heating and cooling costs, let us do a study, let us do a survey, inspect your home, and figure out how can we lower the cost. And so for the weatherization specifically, we go out and we conduct these tests called CFM, which is a cubic foot per minute. Where it's called a cubic foot per minute test, where we put a fan in your house, we close up all the doors, interior doors, the windows, and we see where the deficiencies are, what the number is. Once we get that number, we go in and we insulate your ceiling using cellulose. We seal your exterior doors with a weatherization strip. We also do the windows, the crawl spaces. We do some duct work. We do the sinks, and we do the lighting cans, right? We insulate that using a caulking material. But we're training these guys to do that. And so where it's relatable is because they can go out and look in their own house and say, oh, notice when I was just sitting in my home, there's the crack in the door and there's a space and I could see where I'm losing heat or, losing heat or energy in my home. But they're able to install this in their in the client's homes. And then once they do that, they run the CFM test again, and they're able to see where it is improved. So, we're doing the work, we're teaching the guys, and we're able to retain them. We have very little turnover work. Um, Again, the some of the challenges that we have is the soft skills, I will say. We we don't go from 0 to 100 in a day. We have to we are working with individuals who have housing insecurities, food insecurities, mental health issues, and we have to address all of that. We are, luckily for us, we have 4 pillars at Thrive. We have workforce, we have business, we have a community center where we work with kids, but we also have a warehouse where we have clothing, we have furniture, things to assist. But we also, in that warehouse, we do have property. So if individuals, we call it the Thrive Hive, individuals who don't have housing, stable housing, we're able to put them up at below market value, right? So that, we can take it out of their check so that they have housing. So we're providing this. But we are supporting them. We have a social worker on staff to help them with what they need. So, the wraparound services are important. But we also make sure that we're relational. We make sure everybody who is with us, they feel like their family. We're not just, we don't need just workers. We need people to believe in themselves. We need people once they leave from us to feel like they can go on and be successful without us. We'll hold their hands while they're here, but we are making sure that they're successful when they leave from us. Next slide, please. So again, we're connecting water, energy with equity. So, um, our model connects environmental resilience. So, like the stormwater management, we connect the workforce with them, and we're investing in our neighborhoods. We're making sure that the neighborhoods where individuals live, just whether we're working in them, we are moving the needle. We partner with, I'll talk about partners quick. I don't know how much time I have, but some of the partners that we have Tulane, we have Howard University comes yearly and help cleans the storm drains, just letting them know what that looks like, how important that is for some, for a city like New Orleans that floods, that we're below sea level. When those drains are clogged, it matters. So, why it's important to keep those drains cleaned. We are working with Propeller. We're working with a number of individuals. It's not, we can't do this alone. So we have a lot of partners, even when we don't have, when our federal dollars were cut and lost, we have philanthropic dollars. And again, we have our social enterprise. Next slide, please. And so our community impact, we're training residents, we're getting certifications. People are getting certifications in weatherization, stormwater management, clean water certifications. We're diverting stormwater. We're building more community partners, and we're engaged with youth. We have partners with the local high school, George Washington Carver. We working with the New Orleans Career Center, which houses several high schools. They're working in weatherization to construction, welding. So we're building those partners and we're getting youth engaged. So it's not just the older people, but we're starting up with young so that they have a they have a clear understanding of what it looks like to be energy efficient, how it is to move and live in this world that has so many challenges, and how to be a part of the solution. Next slide. And if you all, I hope I didn't miss anything, but if you guys have oh, the future of Thrive. So our strategic priorities are to expand green infrastructure implementation, to scale solar and energy workforce training, to develop resilience hubs, to increase environmental justice initiatives, and to support climate adaptation solutions, and to grow pathways into green economy. Obviously, we believe in New Orleans and we want New Orleans to thrive. And even if, other outside entities aren't invested, we want to make sure we're doing our part and our due diligence, but we're also always thriving and, trying to build partnerships, so that it is not just, New Orleans, we want to be the model for other cities and states. And so, we're working to build those partnerships. Next slide. And so if you all have any questions or concerns, yeah, you can reach out.
Thank you, Bernadette. We have one question in the chat. They were wondering, is the Energy New Orleans home retrofit program free to participants?
It is free. It is free. So, but it is free and it is income based. So depending on your income, you can get it all done for free of charge for you. So you could get the cellulose in your attic, your central air unit, insulated, doors, windows. Yes. And it's important because, in New Orleans, we have a lot of older homes. We have the old double sash windows, double hung windows. So they're not energy efficient because, it's a single pane glass. Air goes out. If it doesn't have the caulking around it, the air is just going to go out just like the doors. And even though 80% of New Orleans flooded under her, after in Hurricane Katrina, a lot of people didn't rebuild, from slab up. They remodeled their homes essentially, and it was more cost efficient to keep some of, the windows and the doors. And also because a lot of New Orleans is historic, you had to keep your old windows and doors. So, we try our best to keep our costs down.
See, I don't see any other questions in the, there's a comment that Entergy and other utilities offer a similar program across Arkansas. So that's a great thing to know, that there are more programs like this with such a deep touch. How do you determine the homes that it's income based? Is it application also?
Yeah, so it's an application. So
Yep.
anybody who is interested, they fill out an application. We go to the home,
Okay.
but we also canvas because there's a lot of individuals who may not be able to read, who may not watch the news, just,
Yeah.
who just are disconnected. So we do canvas in certain communities where, excuse me, low-income neighborhoods or neighborhoods where we think that people aren't getting the messages. And so we do canvas and go to those neighborhoods to make sure that we aren't missing anybody who
Great.
does qualify for those programs.
That's great. Well, thank you. We're gonna wrap up, but Bernadette shared her information. We've shared Thrive's website in the chat, so please check that out to learn more and follow their progress and great work in New Orleans. Thank you so much for being here, Bernadette. We have one more quick poll if we have time for it, Samantha. I know we were having a little bit of technical issues behind the scenes, but that we'd love to share. If not, I'm going to go ahead and do my own survey plug here. Let's see.
Yeah, apologies, my computer cut out and it's not showing the poll right now.
That's okay.
I'll put it in the chat though.
We're going to go straight to the didn't results. Okay, so this is the biggie here. First, I wanted to extend so much gratitude to all of our speakers who joined us today, and I'm really inspired, and I hope that you all are coming away with some inspiration, ideas, possible partnerships, and some tools to look into as well. So please, check out everybody's website and stay in touch. We have a survey that we would love to get your feedback on. This is the QR code, yet another QR code, but we'll send out the link to this survey as well, but we would really love your insight and expertise and guidance really in the direction of these working groups as we move forward with them. It's a short survey, but you all are boots on the ground, and we want to know where the gaps and challenges are so that we can help support you in this work. So please share your ideas, and we really appreciate the feedback. Just a reminder that the session recording will send out after this, and the request for information, the RFI funding opportunity, is out. This is the QR code to the BRESE website. We'll also share that in the email as well, but those are due May 27th, and we have more of these happening all the way through next week through May 22nd. This is our first kind of batch of working group sessions, so would love to have y'all join more. So please feel free to register on our website. And I think that might be it. We were going to have poll results, but we're going to skip that for this session. And I'm just going to say thank you so much for spending the last hour and a half with us, and more soon, hopefully. Have a great day and take care. Thanks, everybody.
Yeah, thank you to all our speakers, and thank you to everyone who attended and asked lots of great questions. And if you have more, please email us.
Great note. All right, y'all. Have a good day.
You want to stop the recording, Gretchen?
Yeah.